I did what I think a lot of people would have done by calling and just reporting it because I thought she needed help. In retrospect, I probably should have just pulled off the highway and helped her out. I, you know, I don't feel responsible or guilty or anything like that. But it is a weird feeling knowing that if I had made that extra bit of effort to help her out, maybe we wouldn't be here. I'm not saying that it was my call, that, he was the officer. I have no idea if he was the officer that they dispatched or if he was just driving by and happened to see her or what happened at that point, but it's weird. I was invited to attend a meeting of an organization called Critical Resistance LA. They were holding this meeting at the Mike Kelly homestead outside the MoCA. So at the end of this meeting, after seeing presentations from various organizations that they work with about the prison industrial complex and, how our communities are over-surveilled by law enforcement and cameras, all of that, they had a little activity for us to get involved in. So they set up a prompt for the scene. And this prompt was, there's a convenience store owner who was just held at gunpoint and robbed. And the robber ran away, with the gun and the money. And there are two people in this store. So they asked for 3 volunteers, one person to play the convenience store owner, and then one person to be a abolitionist, one who wants to do away with the prison industrial complex and wants to find a solution that doesn't include calling the cops. And then the other person is like, let's call the cops, right? So they say, go for it, like, here's your scenario, you guys work it out. So in the scene, they go back and forth, giving reasons why they should call the cops or they shouldn't call the cops. And in the end, they come up with this fantastic resolution, which is, let's go outside and find the guy and find out why he needed the money. And let's talk to him and talk this out, right? So as you can imagine, I agree with a lot of the issues that were brought up of over-policing and surveilling and the prison industrial complex. At the end of the day, there are times when I'm going to call the cops. I think that there's a reason to call the cops. So maybe I was a bit of a skeptic. It was a great little demonstration, but I was a little skeptical when I left. So now fast forward to about 3 or 4 days later, and it was just after the sad loss of the US team in the World Cup. I watched it with my sister and some friends, and I was coming back to my part of town from Venice. So I was coming back to downtown on I-10 going east, and as I was driving, this was around rush hour, there were a lot of cars. I noticed in the shoulder there's a woman walking down the shoulder. She seemed a little older, and she was walking very quickly down the shoulder, and my thought was, oh my gosh, car broke down, maybe she doesn't have a cell phone, or she got kicked out of a car. I've seen that happen before. And my impulse was, I should pull over and help this woman, give her a ride off the highway, see what's going on. But of course I was in a further left lane. I was maybe, several lanes over from the shoulder. And so at this point, traffic had sped up and it was going quite quickly. And so it was difficult for me to get over in a good amount of time that I could actually do something. So I thought to myself, okay, I'll just call the non-emergency LAPD line, let them know there's an older woman on the highway, might need some assistance, right? So make the call, they transfer me to California Highway Patrol, since it's their jurisdiction, and I put in the report. I say, yeah, there's a woman just walking down the shoulder. I don't know what's wrong, but might want to send an officer out just to make sure she can get off the highway easily. And that was that. Went home, had a little pizza for dinner, I think. It was a good night. And went about my week, and then and I just happened upon it. I just happened upon the video, scrolling down, looking at Google News, headlines, that sort of thing, and I saw the still of the video, and immediately I recognized the purse that's in the front of the frame there. And my eyes, jumped up to the headline, and I see I-10, officer beats woman on I-10, and I know it's the woman I called about. And it's a weird feeling to see that. Having been somebody to call about her needing help, and this is the result. I don't know what to think about that. Definitely. The words from the meeting at the critical resistance meeting, kept flooding my mind. It's, just the unreasonable amount of sort of authority that the police have to do something like this, and have it somewhat be justified because of excuses or whatever, just I'm sure he can claim that she was acting erratically, or I think CHP said that she was endangering herself and others, and so by sort of creating this case, it's I guess meant to justify the action, which to me seemed, I mean, come on. So I find out about this, and not an hour later, I get a call from a California Highway Patrol investigator wanting to interview me about, I guess, what I saw. And we set up a time the next day for them to come to my house and just ask me a few questions about what I saw. One of the things they were really interested in was what kind of her state of mind was at the time, which was weird to me because when I saw her, she was just a woman needing to get off a highway. Like any of us would look, kind of walking quickly, sort of uncomfortable with the environment, but there was nothing abnormal about it. In fact, I didn't feel threatened. I was wanting to pull over and help her. So it's just to see it in, I don't know, in the context of it being this big story, it's just so bizarre. I don't know how really to describe that. I saw somewhere in the article that the woman was possibly homeless and maybe mentally ill. But when I saw her walking on the highway, she seemed pretty much like anybody who needed to get off a highway. She was walking with the flow of traffic on the shoulder, actually quite to the side, as far to the side as possible of the shoulder, walking very quickly, clutching her bag. She looked like anybody who would be in a situation where they had to leave their car on the highway or something like that. And I wonder, it's interesting to see her sort of being portrayed this way. And I read in the article that, maybe she had exited off the highway down a ramp, but then went back up and started weaving in and out of traffic, something along those lines. And it just strikes me as odd because when I saw her walking, it was a normal walk. And I wonder how much of that could have been, provoked by maybe having an officer. If this happened after the officer arrived, maybe, if she is mentally ill, there might be she might have been uncomfortable or nervous having an officer kind of pursue her in that way. And, rightfully so, apparently. So yeah, there was nothing remarkable at all other than the fact that there's a person walking on the highway. So it did seem to me that maybe there was sort of an effort by the media to portray her as being maybe a little erratic or crazy or something like that. I think it did say like weaving in and out of traffic or going towards oncoming traffic, something along the lines that would make it seem as if she was totally acting crazy and like she wasn't. That's not how I saw her just moments before. So when the California Highway Patrol investigators came to talk to me about the incident, they asked me specifically how like what her behavior was, because I had seen her prior to an officer even being dispatched. So I guess was one of the first people to call in about somebody on the highway. And it was interesting because one of the investigators said, and kind of made a hand motion, he was like, was she sort of waving around or talking to herself or acting crazy? And I don't know why that's automatically like, I guess to justify the actions of the officer, maybe to show that the force was necessary. I don't know, but the woman that I saw was acting in a way that I think any of us would act if we were stranded on a highway needing to get off, just walking quickly down the shoulder and trying to stay away from traffic. So it was weird. I mean, going into the meeting, like I definitely already had a lot of strong sort of feelings and convictions about the prison industrial complex of my own, and certainly feel that we are over surveilled, and I've seen videos of police blatant police abuse, and I've seen police be very intimidating. So going to the meeting with the critical resistance folks didn't necessarily like enlighten me of those issues because I already knew this existed. What was really great was knowing that there are people who are sort of actively involved in trying to make something happen, and knowing that what they're seeking is not just a complete destruction of the entire thing, but coming up with solutions to handle issues that we would normally run to the police for. So having very strong communities, having I think they're called just like community peacekeepers or something like that, but individuals who are trained in de-escalation and sort of, I guess, conversation in general to sort of help talk to people who would normally go to the police maybe, and if there's a disagreement or even a domestic issue, try to help on an individual level, help those people in some way. So I don't know. I think that's great, definitely. Still a little skeptical. I think that there needs to be some amount of force every now and then, but I don't know. It's strange. Definitely, this situation made me. I don't know what to say. I wanted to call them up and say like, "Hey, you guys are right. We shouldn't have called the police." No good deeds go unpunished. That's the moral of the story.